Hello everyone, I'm Swati and today we are going to see some pattern programs using Python language. So let's begin, starting with a simple program. So here we can see that we have to print 1 in the first row and then increment that by 2 and then print it, and then again increment that value by 2 and then print it 3 times, and then so on. So this is actually a left tilted triangle, and here to get this condition we can see clearly that the number of row is equal to the number of column. So in the we have one row and one column, we have two rows and two columns, and so on, right? And it's clear that first we have to set a value as 1 and then increment by 2 each time before printing a new line. That value should be incremented by 2 and then it should be printed. So let's implement it as a program. Here, firstly, we have taken an n value as the input. So using that, we are going to determine the number of rows in the columns. And we have taken a value as 1. And then before printing of new line, we have to increment it by 2. And the number of rows we have defined as equal to n plus 1, since in Python it will not take the last value. So if you give n plus 1, actually it will print only up to n. So, and the number of column is I plus 1. That means it is equal to the number of rows, right? It is going to be equal to I. And we are going to print that value, and after printing that it will be incremented by 2, and this will keep on repeating. So let's run this. So this is exactly the output which we wanted, right? And you may wonder, why have we given it here? So let's experiment with this also. We can try to give this before this column loop, and if we give this here, then you can see that in the first value itself is not getting printed, right? Since we have given this before the print statement itself. So to correct this, we can make another method, that is the value can be set as -1, and then initially it will be incremented by 2, that is it will become 1. So this is also another method of solving. So you can see that there are a number of ways of solving a problem, only it depends on us that how we are solving this. So if we are printing this after this print statement, then you can see what's happening. Here the value, okay, that we can set as 1, that's not a problem, but you can see that in each column the value gets changed since we have written this inside this column loop. So if you want to print this pattern, then you can use this value like this, but in our case they have given a different pattern, so this won't work. Okay, so you can see that what's the importance of writing it in the correct place. So this also plays a major role. You have to know why we have to write it here. Only by practicing such problems you'll understand. Okay, so similarly you can experiment with other things also. Now let's move on to the other uh, loop or other pattern. So here you can see that this is also a left tilted triangle similar to the previous one, and here we have values as, like, first we have 1 here and then 2 3, and then the 4 is getting printed in the right side, then it's incremented towards the left side. So actually this printing like this is not possible. From right to left we cannot print the values. Just by looking at this you cannot think that we can print from right to left it's not possible in Python or C or in any other languages also. So what you have to do is you have to determine how you can find out this first value, and then we can actually decrement this value, right? So after printing 3 we can decrement this value. So that is possible. So now we have to determine the relation between the row number and this initial value. So here, what is the first, we can see what's the difference between the row number and the first value. So first here the difference is actually 1, and here the difference is 3, and here the difference is 6. So the difference is also not common, so we cannot determine this or find the logic of this by using this difference. So similar to this previous one we can try. So if we set a value as 1 and then keep on decrementing it, then what happens is, so first we have set a value as 1 and it would become 0 after decrementing, right? And here what would be the value at the end is 1. So first we'll just find out the value after decrementing in each row. So this is going to be the value. After 2 we'll get 1, after 4 we'll get 3, and so on. And now to 0, if we add 3, then we would get this, it's obvious. So with 0, if we add the row value, then you will get 2. Then what else we have to add is 1. And again with 1, if we add this row value, we'll get 4. So remaining what you have to add is 2 to get this 6. Okay. And with 3, if we add 4, then we'll get 7. What else we have to add is 3 to get this 10. So now we have found that there is a relation between these numbers. What is that relation is? It's continuously getting incremented by 1. So here we can set a 0 because that doesn't make any difference. Okay, so we have to set another value as 0 and then keep on incrementing that by 1 and add that with the row value to get this. So value plus this, so we can keep this as value 1 and this is value 2 and add that with this row value to get this first digit, and then continuously we can decrement it. So I think you would have understood the logic of this. And now let's do the programming part for this. We can take the same program and just do a little modification because both are left tilted triangle. So first we are going to take n as the input, and as I told you, we are going to keep a val 1. Okay, let's keep it as value 1 or 2, whatever you want, and it's going to be 0. This 0 is actually this value which we are going to continuously increment by 1. Okay, and this is the loop for the row. It's going to be the same, and after this we have to define the value which we are going to print. So I told you that it's going to be the sum of this value 1 and the row. Okay, so this we are going to print, right? So it's going to be the sum of this and the row value. Okay, so that will give us the first term to be printed. So we are going to print this value, and at the end we want a space. And I told you that this value 1 should be incremented by 1. This value 1 should be incremented by 1 each time. Okay, so this is the logic. Let's see whether it works out. So here another thing is that we have to decrement it here. So in the previous case we would have seen the entire row contain the same value, but here we have to decrement it, right? Okay, so let's decrement the value by 1 each time after printing it. So now you can see we have got the exact value which we wanted, or the pattern which we wanted. So similarly you can find other logic also for this, or you can even try some other modification in this and find out this pattern. And now let's try another pattern. This is also a left tilted triangle. This is also a left tilted triangle, but this cannot be found normally by using the logic which we solved in the previous two problems. Okay, so here if you try to find out the logic for these numbers to be printed, it's too hard. So you have to think mathematically for this. So how will you print this pattern? Here firstly you can see that we have to print 1, and then we have to print 11, and then 121, which is actually 11 square, and this number 1331 is actually 11 cube. So you cannot find logic directly by which we solved in previous two cases. So in this you have to find logic in this way. Even you can find out other logic also, but that may consume more time, and also uh, it may create a bigger program, that is the number of lines in the program may increase. So this is the best and easiest way. It's actually incrementing as 11 powers. So this is 11 power 1, this is 11 power 2, and 11 power 3, and so on. So firstly just you have to print 1 and then print all the 11 powers. So let's try this. It's actually very easy if you find the logic. So only thing is that we have to find the logic correctly. So first we are going to take the n value, and then you have to just give a single loop. This is the symbol for exponent. This is actually not available in C language. You have to write the code for the power, but in Python we can write this easily just by making use of two stars. Okay, so this is the logic. Let's first print this, and okay, let's just print this and we'll see. So we have got the pattern which we want, but if you want the spaces in the in between, okay, we have not printed one. In the starting you just print 1. So this is the pattern, but if you want spaces after each digit, then what we have to do is we have to convert it as a string and then join all that by using spaces in between each letter. So to do that we have to use dot join of map of str comma str of this, and give the braces accordingly. So let's try this. So we have got the exact pattern which we wanted. Okay, so you can see that just by finding out the logic, how easily we have written the program, and that too very short program we have written. So just the thing is that you need to find the logic perfectly. Okay, now let's try some star pattern programs. So this is an inverted triangle of star. Okay, so here you can see that we don't just have to print the stars, we have to print the spaces also. So in the program, first you can see the number of spaces are continuously increasing in each row, right? The spaces are increasing and the number of stars is getting decremented continuously. So this is actually the logic. And so what you have to do is you have to find the number of rows, and the spaces have to be printed in each row and stars after these spaces, and increment the spaces in each row and decrement the number of star in each row. Actually this is the logic. So we can see how we have to implement that in the program. Okay, so here we have taken the n as the input, and here I have defined a value as k. So I'll tell you why we have to do so, and if we are not doing that, what will happen. So don't worry. And here firstly you can see that the number of row is decrementing. So we have to first take the row values n and then decrease it each time. So that's what I have written. This is a reverse loop. And the number of columns is also getting decreased each time. Okay, so that's again what we have written. And in the column, so you can see the number of columns only will get decreased each time. Sorry, the number of columns will get increased each time. The number of row will get decreased each time. So here you can see the number of columns is increasing, but the number of rows will get decreased each time. So I think you would have understood. So that's why we have taken this k value as n. We have defined a k value in order not to disturb this n value. Otherwise, your input would get changed and the number of rows also will get changed each time. So in order to increase the column value, first we have to keep this n value as another value and then increase it. Okay, and then we have to print, after printing the spaces, we have to print this star. So I have written both these loop inside a common single loop, right? I think you can understand. So that means after this statement, this will be executed and you'll get a pattern like this. So let's try it. So you can see how this works. First spaces are getting printed and then star will get printed each time, and so on. So if we are not defining this k value, then if you simply want to increase the n value, then what will happen is, see, in the first line itself, the n is getting changed, and that's why spaces itself are not getting printed, and n is getting increased each time. So we are not getting the spaces properly. So that's what is happening. So we don't have to change this n value. We have to just increase the column value by 1. So for doing that, you have to keep a value as n and then increase it. So that's the importance of this. So by practice you will understand and know how to use all these things. Okay, now we'll try another pattern which is similar, or you can see just the reverse of the previous one. So just we have to invert the row loop, right? If we start the loop from 1 until we till n, then we'll get this loop. Earlier we had a reverse loop, so here we are going to have a forward loop, and here we increase the k value by 1, and here we are just going to decrease the k value by 1, right? Okay, so let's try this. See, we have got the pattern which we wanted. Finally, I'd like to conclude with a quote that method is the arithmetic of success. So this means that there are numerous methods of solving a problem. Try yourself and find out numerous ways of solving it, and surely you will succeed. Thank you.